in 1996, we had a three-phase proposal to raise funds for, the first phase was to renovate the sanctuary that you see now. This was all renovated in 96. The second phase was actually going to be to add a small building to expand our classrooms on the side, essentially as an extension into the parking lot. And the third phase of that was going to be a beautification process where we repaved the parking lot. So the discussion of paving has been around for almost 15 years already, or almost 20 years. So that's where that fund was initiated. So we raised about $90,000 total when we started. $60,000 of that went into this sanctuary renovation. And then over time, the phase 2 and phase 3 plans were set aside with other visions. We've had 2 different approaches since then to actually move the sanctuary over, and that's when the steering committee was formed to investigate those areas. And so that's when we had a larger vision and plan change, and so that's why phase 2 and 3 were abandoned of that original plan. But the church move funds were established in 96 with that in mind. So that fund, which now has $95,000 or so in it, that was established back in 96, and there have been donations made to that fund based on the activity over the last few years with the larger plan of moving the sanctuary to a different location on the property and taking a whole new view.
So to clarify, we did come back as a church and vote on how we were to allocate and where the money for the balance of the fund was, how it was to be used.
Those funds, I guess what you're saying is those funds were established as a church move fund.
For the move. Okay, and the reason that I bring that up is because I think that, some of you have been here at least that long, if not longer. Many of you may not have been privy to that vote and the capital campaign that went along with it. It was a rather emotional time, and people really stepped up and donated in large sums to make this move. That's the energy that was behind the move. The energy is still there. The steering committee has brought this back to the church to give you updates, at least on an annual basis. The most recent, I believe, was just this past March, where there's been a subcommittee, an ad hoc committee created in town, consisting of about 16 people. Peter Turner and I attend these meetings. We meet twice a month and have for the last year. We're meeting with Dwight Harris, ONG, Andrews Perry. So there are a lot of players and landowners that, with the whole intent that the vision is to create a new downtown for the center of Burlington, centered along Library Lane, which would proceed down into the ONG property, bend to the east, and connect up to Covey Road, with the ability to create a live-work environment, housing, commercial development, retail development, restaurants, the works. So I think it's important that we not lose sight of the intent of that $95,000. Knowing that the general fund is gone is heartbreaking. But in the same breath, I just have to tell you that if we start picking away at $95,000, we're already close to $3 million short of being able to achieve our goal. And $100,000 for us is a big chunk of money. There are other techniques and ways that we are thinking about on how to raise the balance of money to move this church. And hopefully, we had this meeting in March. We all voted again. Everyone was excited about it. There's a lot of momentum right now in the town for this to happen. And it's just going to be, in my opinion, a matter of time. A year, 2 years, 3 years, probably max, before the synergy is there, and we make the value of our property, assuming that other things get developed first, because we're not gonna move, we're not gonna be the prime movers here. We have to sit back and wait. But the value of our land is going to increase based on development along Library Lane and the fact that we're gonna punch this road through into O&G's property. So my concern is that if we start picking away at it now, it's gonna be very easy next year to take another 20,000, and the year after that to take another 20,000, and pretty soon the money that we had dedicated for that move is gonna be gone. It's gonna be depleted.
Yep, thank you.
100,000% agree with what you just said. The fact remains is we need cash to operate this church now. And if we don't pay our bills, we close our doors and it doesn't matter, all the church move plans go away. I mean, that's the drastic step. What he said though, 3 or 4 years of taking 20 here, 15 here, 12 here, is absolutely right. And we know as a business committee that we have to make some tough choices in the next operational budget. And we have to come back to you guys and figure out how we drop in this. We're not gonna get the pledging. That is the answer, folks. You have to dig deeper. You have to do the fundraising better. That's the only answers. And if we're not gonna do it, we have to cut the budget, because we do not want that to happen, like you just said. Unfortunately, this year, it did.
Wendell?
I wanted to sort of piggyback on the comments that Dave was making. I don't really have a resolution to it as we talk about these things, but I hope somebody can speak who was here at the time that made donations to the building, to this fund. Did they give these donations with the expectation that that money was only going to be used to move the church? If they did, then to me it's a betrayal to them of their giving, which I would feel sad about. If they gave it open-ended, without any, in their mind, any restrictions, the church uses it, what we call sort of unrestricted funds, then I would be a little bit more at ease about it. I understand our budgetary constrictions, but I wasn't here then. But I tell you, if I had been, and I had given, which I know many of you were very generous and had given sizable amounts of money to see something happen, and if you see that money used for something else, I would think you might see that as a betrayal. But I can't speak for these people. I hope that someone here that had done that can speak to that. Maybe it's not an issue for you. I don't know. So is that something maybe somebody could speak to?
This is why, quite frankly, this sucks being right here right now today as a business committee chair. This is why I worry, this is why I look ahead like you did just now, 3 to 4 years into the future. I don't like what I see. I love this church. I write those things in the newsletter for a reason, trying to inspire people to see that a little bit can go a long way if we all do it. But you're right, none of this, all this stuff is designated. That's why this is a super difficult topic. If we can choose not to do anything, but at some point, we're not paying bills. And I don't think, this is where there's a little nebulous in the Bible, and I think we have to pick something. We have to pay these bills. So I don't care if we split it up amongst 2 or 3, we pick one, or not, I don't care. I don't think the committee cares, but we just saw that had the biggest amount of money, and we feel we get it once this year, it's gonna shock people, maybe wake some people up to do, who could do better. There's some of us, I'm one of them, that we're sitting here on a string running what we can do. I know there's a lot of people like that. But we also know we got a lot of work to do on the committee to cut this budget for next year, so we do not have these deficits hitting us again. We're not gonna allow that, at least as me as chair, I'll fight tooth and nail. We're not letting a $27,000 face-paid budget go through unless we see pledging pick up this year. It just can't. It can't happen, because what you just said is going to happen. There'll be another $30,000 out of that, some fund somewhere, which is not good. So all I care about today is that we keep our lights on, all our missions going, we pay the IRS, we pay our staff, we do all the stuff that we have to do. We just need to know, this was our recommendation because it was the biggest number and the easiest one we think we can pay back over time. We hope. But you're right, it may be gone forever. So this is why we need to make a decision today. How do we get to that $18,000 that we need?
Ken?
Of course, we could be like the government and take on some of that. I don't know if any thought's been done, because I don't know all the particulars. I know that we have a home that we support. I don't know what the mortgage is on it. I know the rates are cheaper. Has anybody thought
Yes, Bill, can you speak to it? They asked about the refinancing of parsonage and even the church.
I checked with the Farmington Savings Bank, who holds the mortgage, and because we don't live in it, in the building, the house, they call it a commercial loan. And they could give us a lower interest rate for, I think it was a 5-year deal, but then it would be a variable rate. So the bottom line is, because unless somebody wanted to back the mortgage, we could get a lower rate, just because we own the building and we can't get, it's pretty difficult to get a lower rate at this juncture.
What about the parsonage?
That's what we're talking about, parsonage.
That's how he answered your question, you're talking
About
about.
the house?
Yeah,
That's it, that is
that's
part.
what we
They
call.
don't consider that as, they consider that as a commercial?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the church owns it,
Because the church owns it, it's not owned by a person.
Mortgages in it?
and we can't get a residential mortgage.
You know what
No.
percentage of rate is in it?
Do we know
What was that rate? When was it? We were at the lowest when we looked at it.
Yeah, you know,
It was a
I
little
forgot what
higher.
the rate was, but it was, I forgot.
I think it was, you know, don't hold me to it, but I think it was like 5.5 or something like that,
I
but
think it's in the 5.5.
fives for the commercial rate.
Commercial rates.
But that was when it was at its lowest, it's crept up a little bit since, but not much. but
We
it
did
has.
look at it, and it's a good question, but we can't do anything about it.
No.
Unless you wanted to say, oh, I'll put the
The
mortgage.
Bank of Kent,
Wow, okay, that's a great, excellent question.
it is, good question.
I guess to complicate this discussion a bit further, there is what we call the parsonage insurance fund. A year ago, when we had flood damage, the parsonage was, there was a $10,000 check provided by the insurance company, which we have established as an additional fund, which we call the parsonage insurance fund. The intent in the business committee is that that fund, just like every other location in our funds, we don't have we have a building fund here for this main property. We don't have such a fund to cover unusual expenses or updates to the parsonage property. So when we essentially gutted the basement space, which was living space, after the water damage, we were awarded a $10,000 insurance settlement. We did not improve that space again because we have concerns about water issues in the basement. And so our hope was that in time, we could invest that money back into the parsonage. So I guess what I'm raising is the next fund that has sizable value in our portfolio is the parsonage insurance fund, which is $10,000. So I put that on the table just so that everyone is aware that they're beyond the funds that are shown here. There's $10,000 in addition.
And, you know, that's good, because we do want to mix, you know, we want to keep things separate, that's a good point. And then, so if you have that 11,000, I'm gonna throw this out. Perhaps we take 6 from that, 6 from memorials and 6 from the building fund, which reduces the bigger hit. And actually, interest actually is covering, for this year, that's almost all interest from where we started. So if we do 6, 6, and 6, that's the 18 that gets us through this year. Does anyone else
That's
have
one idea.
ideas?
And
Again, just one follow-up on the mortgage. Can't we get a home equity line, or a second mortgage for $20,000? I mean, the payment over 10 years would be about $200 a month, or something very small, $300 a month. Does anybody look at getting a second mortgage on that?
Not on a commercial property. I don't think you can get a second mortgage on a commercial property.
They're considering us commercial.
we don't need a line of credit. Commercial property.
To that point, Ken, about 8 years ago, we made renovations to the parsonage. We held the parsonage for about 10 years. The renovations made to put siding and to redo plumbing and so forth in the building. So the loan was actually extended. It was originally a 30-year term. They took money out and raised the principal and extended and rewrote the mortgage essentially at 30 years. But it's the same initial mortgage. So suppose something like that could be done in order to offset this.
But we can explore that after the fact. We need to know now where our money's coming from, and we can look into that, and obviously pay back whatever we took, if that's what the case is. You got a couple hands up.
I'm moving on first, that's right. Thank you, Sarah.
what people are saying, but my personal opinion is just chopping it up into pieces just becomes more of an accounting nightmare, and it sort of dilutes the impact of the pain on paper, but doesn't, doesn't change the facts. And as chair of the Evangelism and Church Growth Committee, I have to say that, right now, we are not seeing, we would like to think that, okay, if we could have this bright new church on a beautiful new spot and all nicely landscaped someday down the road, if we build it, they will come. But in reality, we do not know that. We do not know that. So while I have been a member here, not quite back to 1989, but close to that, and that has been part of the fabric of this church since I've been a member, is that we will move it. I've always known that that's not necessarily going to happen. We certainly hope that it does happen, but I do agree personally that the first responsibility we have is to this building, to our staff, to our daily operating budget.
Dave,
I have been for that long, and I was a part of some of the fundraising that went on to put money into that fund for the purposes of moving the church. However, I agree with you. I think taking a little from each would be good. It offsets. We're taking the money out of the build fund that's pretty much all interest this year. We're not touching anybody else's money, so to speak. But I also think we should definitely look into maybe a line of credit. We are a business. We've been talking about that for a little while. I've had a business line of credit with my business in town. It's not hard to do. It may be something we want to look at for our operating budget, so to speak. And we work off the line of credit for the operating budget and use our funds as a secondary situation.
Bill?
I did contribute to move the building fund years and years ago. And I really don't remember whether I said, oh, that's the only way it's got to be used. But if I did say that, now I am saying, and I understand where Dave is coming from, I understand that we need to pay the bills today. And we got to do what we got to do. So if we need to take money out of that fund, so be it.
Yeah, I was here at that, this said Choker, I was here at that time too, and I agree with what else. It's such a long time ago.
Okay, George, and then Bob.
Years ago, when they had this big push and everything else, we had consultants here and everything else to do a capital fund project thing. And we were told one thing blank: if you can't get your house in order and pay your bills, you're never going to do this project. We have not met a budget since then. Right? We're going back the last 12 years anyway. We have not really met a budget without every time asking, give us more, give us more, give us more. And we were told, you're not going to be able to do this project until your house is in order and you're paying your bills. Here we are 10, 12 years later, not paying our bills, still wanting to do something that personally I'm becoming to think is unrealistic in my lifetime. Another problem is, I don't think most people planned on the church being down the back road. They still planned on it being seen from before and not, something else up front. So it's, we haven't been able to come to fruition with this whole thing.
Bob? Mark?
No, I put money into that. We gotta pay the bills.
Barb?
I too was a member of that committee and put money in, and I agree with what's been said. So I'm just wondering if in the essence of time that we at least pick a fund and just at this point use that fund and then make a plan to repay back that fund as we move forward with our budget. Because it's being said that the same thing, that we're all in agreement that we've got to pay our bills. And we really just need to move forward and pick a fund or two funds, whichever it may be, to be able to pay our bills to move forward.
Is there anyone that can enlighten us on the Memorials Fund? When was the last time we dipped into it? What was it used for, and what historically is it intended for?
A little. They do Bibles, they do some stuff like that, anything like plaques, that kind of stuff. I see the plaques around here. I do believe they might even do some stuff for cemeteries and some of the people, but again, is there anyone from Memorials that's active on it?
Been on it in the past.
Again, it's a case of sort of, if you give to that memorial fund, or money's put in there in an undesignated way, then I think you should be prepared for the fact that it could be used for anything.
And that memorial
I
fund
think
is
it
up
can
there.
be. There's no reason that it couldn't be. I would propose, or if I'm not making a proposal, that you might want to do half and half between those two funds.
And I know Denise, being as the chair of Memorial, she's not here today, but in some church council meetings, she has talked about, you know, the intent that we have talked about that, and I think it is essentially more, you know, undesignated. And it was, the intention is to do what, it's to be used for what the church needs. Kind of, you know, obviously that's a wide open statement, so it's, you know, it's simple, maybe contributing to some of the repairs, you know, using some of that money for repairs, it's the things that Jerry just talked about. So as you can see, there's not a, you know, it's obviously not as much money as some of the other funds, but over time that's built up, and I think that committee is thinking about what could they use it for, so, because people did give it for an intention to do what the church needs. But there's no specific plans, I think, at this point.
I'm not, I don't want to go live on the spot. But you've been on Memorials, correct?
Excuse me?
You've been on Memorials before, correct?
Not memorials, but the mention of new hymnals is not.
Yes.
And we only purchased 50, I guess. They really need to be replaced, but they're just as in time.
Just on top of what Mary Ann said, taking the notes at the meetings, Memorials has been looking at where to donate some of those funds towards different ideas. And the board game was one that they were looking at. Without my notes, I don't remember what the other, for bathroom upgrades. They are looking at putting donations towards that. Without having to come to the congregation, I believe they could spend up to $500, she said, without asking for specifics. So that's what they, you know, those are the two things they were looking at right now. Bill and then Deb.
Can we amend the motion and make it half out of the memorials and half out of the church move fund?
Second.
Are you making a motion?
Oh, you want me to make a motion? You want me to make a motion or just?
Yeah, well, I think Deb had
No,
a,
he has to amend.
I think, how do we do last time? We just did this. I think that's a suggestion, I think we'll come back through, but I wanted to, Deb had one more comment on kind of current.
My suggestion was divided into three parts. Take it from the insurance, 10,000 that we got for the parsonage, 10,000 from memorials, and or whatever the numbers are. A third from each of those groups.
Okay.
My suggestion is leave it in.
Okay, so I think we don't know what the amendment is yet.
We haven't
I don't know
done
what
that.
Bill said. Oh, Bill was saying,
I'm trying to figure out what to amend.
he was saying half from memorials, half from the church. Your suggestion. Okay, I think we're at the point where we want to make an amendment to the motion based on the discussion. We'll do that just like we did last time.
All right, to get a vote out there, I'd like to amend this motion to take it from three funds: parsonage insurance fund, building move fund, church move, I think that's what it's called, and memorials.
Second. 6,000 each?
6,000 each.
Okay, so just say it one more time, the 6,000.
I amend the motion to say we will take the $18,000 necessary to keep our operating budget going for 2013 to meet our operating deficit as needed from the following three funds: parsonage insurance fund, church move fund, and memorials fund in equal amounts of $6,000.
I second.
Okay, we have a second. Further discussion?
No.
No, good,
Well, as someone who lives in the parsonage,
because we have to, it's an amended
I would-
motion, we have to,
I would like to say that I don't have any problem with what you just proposed, but I want to say this. One day, there'll be a day of reckoning in that parsonage, meaning things will have to get done. You do it now, you do it later. You do it later, you're gonna be surprised. You wish you'd had that 6,000, that's all I'll say about that. But that's your business.
Ken?
Yes, I don't know if you sort of amended thing. If in fact we only need $15,000, and not 18, if things get a little bit better this year, I believe that whatever's left should go back to the parsonage fund. So maybe we can solve that issue by saying, if in fact
We say draw from this one first, the 6,000, then the next, and the next.
Yeah, I would do that like in tranches, like one this fund, then that fund, then parsonage would be the last.
Right, and actually, to add to that, the way that we disperse funds at the end of the year, when we look at how our investments perform, we divide the investment growth over all of the funds. So if the investment growth stays on the same track that it's on already this year, we could have a very good return on our investments, and actually that alone could help to replenish these funds. So I think that approach of dividing amongst the funds is also a good way to replenish them, because we have a process in place.
Chair recognizes,
May I amend my motion? May I amend the amendment of my original motion?
No, move on.
That we use cover our $18,000 operational budget as needed for the 2013 budget from the following three funds in priority order in the amounts of $6,000 each. Church move fund, memorials, and parsonage.
Okay,
Now, no, we got to talk.
Charles, all right, Charlie second. Any further discussion on the amended amendment?
He's got an amendment, wants discussion. Any discussion on his amendment?
Yes, so I have, that's,
Just a question then to clarify what you're saying, if I understand it, is if we, at the end of the year, we only need 12,000 instead of 18,000, then we will take that 12,000 from those two first funds that Jerry referred to, and we'll leave the parsonage fund.
The priority order.
Correct.
666.
Don't say that in church.
Until we get enough that we need, or we have to keep going down.
I motion to accept the amended motion.
Okay, does anyone second? Yes, let's,
No, you gotta.
now, any further discussion? Bill?
I move the motion to vote.
Okay,
Just on the basis of what Paul said, I just want to understand. So in the sequence, in the priority sequence that Jerry listed, what you're saying though is if there's only X number of dollars remaining, that we not take any of the money from the parsonage fund, but instead go back to the other two priority funds, number one and number two, and take from there. So then while we're saying 6,000 from the church move fund, at the end of the year, that 6,000 may become 9,000. Is that what
No,
you're saying?
up to 6,000.
Up to,
I
okay.
think we get, yeah, so it'd be 666, so if we need, the first six will come from the church move. If we need more than 6,000, then we'll hit the memorials fund. If we hit 12,000 and we still need more, then we hit the parsonage insurance fund. And if we hit 18,000, we've maxed out what you've agreed to expend, and then we're back here.
No,
Or we do something
we won't go
else,
past
something else. Hopefully we don't go past.
Just stop paying money.
And then, so it's, right, so we don't have to order, we can bounce ours out.
All right.
Okay? Everyone understand?
Can we
Vote.
take this to?
It's been
I'm gonna-
motioned.
The motion is seconded.
We now need a vote.
Let's call for a vote. All in favor of that amended motion, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Any opposed?
0-1. So the motion passes with the amended motion. Thank you.
I make a motion that we close this meeting.
Yes.
Second.
Yes.
So we gotta do
So we
prayer.
gotta do quick closing prayer and then, the motion, then we'll adjourn. Conclusion of the prayer at like 1 o'clock.
The business committee, thank you so much. I know this was painful. It's painful for us, so thank you.
Our usual custom is to hold the hands of the lady. Appreciate that.
Mr. Higley?
I don't want to be in that video again.
Okay, oh God, we give you thanks for all those who worked so hard to prepare the information today. We give you thanks for each member here and friend who loves this church and loves you and wants to see things happen here that you'd be proud of. So, as always, we ask you to give us wisdom and integrity for the ministry you call us to do. Bless each one now as we go our way. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Hey, Joe.
Sir.
Coffee hour still going on?